Hello, my name is Francis Fox. I'm a trained government remote viewer, a bit under the weather, sex trafficking victim, graduate from the University of Miami in political science, specialist in other dimensional skills such as remote viewing, interspecies communication, and more. Totally shadow banned, totally sat upon, totally controlled. I'm a mind control victim, and I have a lot to share today that can be very uncomfortable for people that have been controlling us forever. Let me start with just gossip, make it a little bit lighter. There was in the news last week that somebody had purchased a house, and I don't know if it was in the basement, they had a swastika. Oh my God. Well, a swastika is a symbol, it's over 6,000 years old. Depending upon the direction in which it swings, you are calling in energy to purify, or you're calling in the energy of God, depending upon the direction. I don't remember what direction. I believe the swastika that the Nazis used is calling in the energy from the crown, which would be other dimensional spirit, God, superpowers, magic. Anyway, I built a building years ago, 3 stories, and I put a swastika with a lot of little flowers underneath the reception desk, spinning in the opposite direction of the clock, which means grounding and purification. I put it underneath the rugs. And several years after I moved, and I think I've told the story before, I was sitting across the table from somebody, blooming idiot, who said to me that the people in the city of Coral Gables thought that I was a Nazi. I went, why would they think that? So it wasn't until later that I realized that I'm sure they pulled up, when I sold the building, they pulled up the rugs and there was a swastika there. Even though it was all made out of flowers, it was still a swastika because it's for good luck, it's for grounding, it's for purification. So if your lens is very small, you're going to have a really difficult time, and you are definitely not going to have superpowers. You're not going to have the ability of magic because you have a limited scope of information and beliefs. The most important thing I think that I was taught in my very severe and ugly training during mind control to expand my mind so that I could be a great remote viewer and other things, other dimensional skills, was that I wasn't allowed to have a narrow lens. I had to look for the answer to questions wherever it was and regardless of my belief system. Even if I hated the information, even if I knew that the people, the military, the scientists that were asking for the information were going to get angry at me because that wasn't what they were looking for, I still had to deliver that information. And I suggest you do the same thing. Don't allow your belief systems to stop you from seeing what's right in front of your eyes. So I have a lot to say today, so we're going to mosey on. My handler, Rene de Villegas, is still operational. The last time I could see him, he was in the offices across from that bank, across from the Coral Gables Hyatt. Now, he could be physically, I think I'm going to sneeze, he could be physically under someone's control, but mentally, totally operational, trying to get me to leave my apartment to meet with him someplace. How does he do that? Not through a phone call, but through speaking inside my head, which a lot of people know how to do. All the spirits know how to do that. And they teach you that in Scientology. They charge tens of thousands of dollars, but they teach you that. So if somebody could figure out how not only to pick up this man, Rene de Villegas, who I'm going to have to conclude is probably one of the top 3 in the mind control program in this country. He's from Miami, in Miami. I think you need to pick him up and you need to figure out how you're going to get his mind under control. I don't know if Schiff is like top dog, but I'm not sure he's the toppest dog in mind control. And I don't know where he stands with Rene de Villegas, but they're kind of like right there. They were both competing for entrance into my energy field in order to be able to feed off of my energy. We're not going into that now. I remember the name of the FBI agent who lived besides our home. My makeup is a mess because I've cried my eyes out today. It's been a very rough day, but it's also been a great day because I figured out the human Taurus and why the only way that you can get to magic is to go through hell, but literally hell down there with the coccyx, but that's for another day. So the FBI agent who lived next to my home when I was between 12 and 14, when I was sex trafficked to Kennedy, his last name was Pincus, Pincus. I don't know anything else about him other than the day that Kennedy was assassinated. When I came home from school, they cut all my hair off. And I have never had anything but extremely short hair since then. I did not understand, even though I knew because I saw it on TV that Kennedy had been killed. I didn't understand. Of course, now I understand. Anybody that would have been associated with Kennedy in that way would have had their handlers kind of nervous. So his name was Pincus, Pincus, and we, even in our asleep mode, we understood that it was kind of weird that he was living in that neighborhood, which was 30th Avenue in Miami, Northwest, right next to 7th Street. Next, you want to be spiritually sophisticated? You're going to have to believe in elves. Because the gnomes, which are the elves, which are Santa Claus, which are Merlin, actually exist and they're very helpful. And they surround your coccyx, which is your gateway to the point on one of the pyramids in Egypt. So remember, I just said, and I'm always saying, expand your lens. You need to expand it. That was hard for me. I mean, military trained, we're going to start believing little elves. You know what? There's a reason why they've been honored throughout history, and they can be mischievous, but they're extremely helpful. And they're your doorway to magic. What's magic? The creating of reality without using your hands or without moving anything physical. Just pure intentionality. And not too sure what else, but the cauldron that the witches use in the human body is 2 inches below your belly button, which is your sacral sexual chakra, which has a name in martial arts, and it's a place that you have to heat up. And we just discovered it's actually the cauldron that requires two other things in order to create magic. I can't go any further into that. I have limited energy and also limited patience today. But I'm giving you bits and pieces. Widen your lens, take it in. You don't have to go and buy stock in what I'm saying. You don't even have to believe me. Don't ditch the information. The most important thing I have to say today is this. This entire country is going into mind control mode. The story The Wizard of Oz is from Kansas, which not coincidentally was where that I identified on one of the maps where the mind control programs are centered in a military base in Kansas. Okay, what do I know about Wizard of Oz? It's a mind control program. It may be the core center of mind control programming. And the lion and then the skeleton, the scarecrow, those are all subpersonalities that are trained in everybody that's mind controlled. And that movie was a requirement that mind control victims see once a year. Now, I don't think it was normally shown in September, but for some mysterious reason, the entire country got to see The Wizard of Oz kind of in the fall or in the winter before November. Oh, I wonder why November. So I think you should look up, Trump, who decided to do something with The Wizard of Oz in Las Vegas. I think there's a show there. Oh, Las Vegas, isn't that near Nellis Air Force Base? Oh, that's where I went when I came from Germany and when I was 2. Oh, that's where Area 51 is. Okay. I think you need to see who it was that decided that we're going to revive the Wizard of Oz and give it to the people that need to decipher the whole mind control thing, because there is no way that this country would have allowed what we have allowed having to do with mind control unless the whole country's mind controlled. Yes, the food has made us half brain dead and other things, but there's programming, and the Wizard of Oz is core programming for mind control. No question. I think that there is a person who, he has to be dead at this point, that is associated from Kansas, called George White. Military, US, was sent to Germany after the Second World War ended. Ended up being one of a very small group of Americans who took over the Nazi mind control programs and research. He was married to my stepmother's sister. Now, when I was doing my research and I was remembering bits and pieces in the 90s, and I thought I was going to go crazy with zero support, at that point, I went from being a very respected businesswoman, very intelligent, very disciplined, to being crazy because nobody could take the information. No, it's not possible. And I remembered him, and I think I saw a piece of information on the internet. There was like one piece of information on him. And I went, is this the George White that my Aunt Marisa married? And I knew it was. And why did I know it was? Because if in my family, my stepmother's family, which I always thought was my family because I didn't find out I was adopted till I was 50, when you said his name, George White, the next word you said was crazy. The George White that I was able to find just barely on the internet, his name, and right after that came the word crazy. So, bingo. And he's from Kansas. And my aunt, the one that married him, not really my aunt, but I thought she was my aunt, she would trolley off to Kansas every once in a while, even though this ex-husband of hers was crazy. So I remember I was trying to figure out how the hell I ended up so positioned in the core of the mind control program. How's that possible? My father, I used to say he couldn't find his way out of a paper bag. He was Cuban, full Cuban. And he was bright. He was an Aquarius. He was bright, but not to be in the core of something as obviously important as this. It was his brother-in-law. And he volunteered me, I got volunteered into the program. So I was able to figure out how, because it was like, how come I was so deep into the center of this mind control program? How did that happen? My family was military, poor as church mice. And I got my answer in the 90s, and then I never said a word because it was very dangerous. Probably still dangerous today, but who the hell, we're going to all go down. We're going to all go down together, which is as it should be. So we have not been spiritually sophisticated. We have been very limited, and our religions have limited us. We have believed that we are Christian and Catholic, and we complain about Satanism, which is like eating of other people and stuff. And then you go to Mass and you drink Christ's blood and you eat Christ with that little white thing. Guys, we have allowed our religions to mind control us to where we have not allowed ourselves to think. We need to stop doing that. We need to think like really, 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 really quick. So let's do the map, and then I'm going to look at my notes and see what I forgot to tell you, because I really ran through this very quickly. The map. Here we go. Looks great. That spiraling green is the heart chakra, and it's grounding, and its root, which is in the Lord's Prayer. That's what you need, and it's your natural protection against evil. At the top, it says Trump was right, and then it says the military is scared. Remember that I said that the deep state people are hiding in military bases. Okay? And then underneath it, it says HESGETH. Isn't he the head of the Pentagon? I'm sure I spelled that wrong. He's being blackmailed. He's not my favorite person because somebody that always looks like they're posing to look great on camera, not my favorite type of people. It's a prioritizing of the physical dimension when honestly it's other dimensions that are more important. He is a very attractive man, but all that posing for me is problematic. Um, but he is being blackmailed according to my map. Now, I could be wrong. Then we have to question everything else on the map. But until now, a lot of interesting stuff has come out that's very valid and that has helped to point us in the right direction. If the man is getting blackmailed, he needs some help. But I think that everybody who was put in a position of power in the middle of a country that is totally asleep and totally mind controlled by the bad guys and then mind controlled by their religions that we're required to respect, I think that it would be very hard to be there and not be blackmailed, especially if you want to look that good. He wants to look good physically. And I would imagine it's got to be hard for him to not look good in the other dimensions or with his reputation. I'm not being critical of him. He's not my favorite person, but that's not important. What's important is that if he's being blackmailed, then everything in the Pentagon is compromised. So you need to trolley on and get this looked at to give him relief, but actually to give us relief. The whole country and actually the whole world, because US military has been a bad boy too many times. And I'm sure the guys that wanted us to be bad boys that are the ones that would be blackmailing him if I'm accurate. And if I'm not accurate, then as I say, in the next incarnation, I'll take care of it. Um, by the way, George's White's daughter ended up working at the Federal Reserve. Now, this was decades ago. I'm talking that I knew 20 or 30 years ago, she got a job at the Federal Reserve. And the whole family was like, how did that happen? It wasn't like, didn't resonate for who she was, for what she was, her level of education. Nice cousin, but Federal Reserve? Oh, her father was George White. That doesn't mean she's a bad person. But chances of her not being real deep mind control, I don't think so. Not, unfortunately for her. Again, she would be, I thought she was my cousin. We were not close. Actually, her mother was very jealous of me because she wanted her daughter, I'm remembering, her daughters to have my position. What the position was that? My control was a powerful person, and she wanted her daughter to be in that position. No, 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 no. What are you, crazy? If you're a mother, you don't want your daughter there. There was something else that was important. Oh, this is cute. Rene de Villegas' wife said 2 or 3 years ago, when I was screaming about the mind control, and Rene, his wife said, you know what? It's not the Cuban mafia that are the problem. It's the deep state. They're the ones that are calling the shots. Her husband was Rene de Villegas, my handler. So his wife identified the deep state as the ones controlling the Cuban mafia. I think she was trying to lighten up the load of the accusations on Rene de Villegas. Wow. Let me look at my notes. I woke up 2 nights ago in the middle of the night. Something shifted on planet Earth. And there's a level of information coming in, which is not really coming in. There's a level of covering of core information now doing revelations that is a shocker. And this is the statement that I wrote in the middle of the night. This country is run by satanic forces that are controlled by negative galactic forces. Now, the satanic forces would be controlling and would be the deep state, but the deep state is controlled by ETs that are bad. And then we have the galactic brotherhood, who apparently are good friends with Trump. And a lot of my maps that I've drawn shows them supporting and protecting the United States and also Venezuela. So this is not news for me, except it's so clearly said, so I'm going to say it again. This country is run by satanic forces that are controlled by galactic forces. But that's what happened with the Nazis. The reason the Nazis reached the level that they reached was because they had ET help, bad ETs. And the ETs have done this through history. When I go like this is the part of us that kind of like witch. So maybe the witches that would like to control me don't want me to talk. We'll keep talking. We'll collapse after the chat. So the bad galactics worked with the Nazis. The Second World War was the first modern war fought with metaphysics. And then in the Nuremberg trials, it was determined not to let the public know this because it would scare them. Okay. So don't be scared of the information I give. It's an opportunity for you to have more power in your life and for people not to pull the wool over your eyes. So we have this country is run by satanic forces controlled by galactic forces. The satanic forces, the satanic forces on this country would be the deep state. The galactic forces would be the ones that have bad intentions for planet Earth. And the good ones are the Galactic Brotherhood, which increasingly people are saying that Trump works with them. In my maps, it comes out continuously. So, satanic. What is satanic? It's a level of black magic. You have the black magic, and then it's a line. You got the white over here, and then you got the black magic over here, which is taking away people's free will. That's what black magic is. And then you keep going and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. When you get to the end, I don't know, maybe because of all the experiences that I had with the whole Santeria stuff, the darkest of the Santeria, commissioned by the CIA in this country, get over this scare and understand the next statement that I got in the middle of the night, which is everything is about scaring you, shocking you, and then you fall asleep. You just can't take it. Like when you have a car accident, somebody's dead, da, 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 and you wake up and you're in shock. And then somebody comes and takes you by the elbow and gently walks you and sits you there on the edge of the road and puts a blanket over you until the police come or somebody comes, and then you kind of little by little. But you don't little by little, and nobody takes you by the elbow to the edge of the road. They take you down the road they want you to go down, which is deeper sleep, and with stuff like the Wizard of Oz. By the way, they have on red shoes, and red shoes is supposed to be one of the symbols for Satanism. So quit with the being scared about the satanic, quit with the being ashamed. How can that be? Trump is helping to take care of it. We can kind of get out of his way, support him, even if it's just with mantras and prayers. Support him. And then look inside yourself. What is it that you need to purify so that you'll be stronger and so that your intentions can play out? Your intentions may be good stuff for everybody, but you got to deal with the bad stuff because it's the bad and the darkness that you haven't wanted to deal with. And that's why they've been able, to a great extent, to control human beings, not just this country, human beings. We have not been spiritually sophisticated. If we were spiritually sophisticated, this would not have happened. So you have to be spiritually sophisticated. Well, spiritual, spirit, you believe in spirits? How do you feel about me working with spirits? Schizophrenic. Guess what? Your religion is all about spirits. All of the religions are all about spirits. Or if not, they're not religions. But you think that this is not good. Well, who brainwashed you? Your religion is teaching you this. You're not taking it in. What's the matter with you? You add up 2 and 2 and you're not going to 4. You're going to 6 and 8 and 10, depending upon the people that you decided that you were going to follow, even though the stories that they fed you do not make any sense. And I always say it. If your religion or the people you love or you work with feed you a story and you take it in, but if you came home from school when you were a kid and you told your mother that story from school, if she would say, where the hell did you get that? That doesn't make any sense. Then you know what? Maybe the people that fed you that story had an agenda. So widen your lens. Be willing to question things. If you cannot question somebody about something, then there's a problem there. You need to be able to say, hey, this doesn't make any sense to me. Now, we don't have that in our families. The fathers, you say it, and you couldn't say this doesn't make any sense. Today, the kids are doing it, and we're like all up in a tizzy. That's what needs to happen. By the way, I spent yesterday crying and looking at the Age of Aquarius play and movie and the songs. You should go back to that. The 1960s, I did a lot of crying. It was the deep state that destroyed the flower children movement, the Age of Aquarius, which is the dawning of the Age of Aquarius. I remember I cried a lot, and I really didn't know what I was crying about. My head was so segmented, but it's beautiful. Irresponsible. Well, no. Planetary movement, community, brotherhood, free sex. That is irresponsible. No, sir, it's not. It's against your paradigm. You want little tight units of family. You expect somebody to be married for 40 and 50 years and never have sex with anybody else? Who do you know that actually adhered to that? No one. Well, then maybe we need to revise that. I like Margaret. I think that marriage, I don't think people should get married, but I think that when you have a companion, I think you should be loyal. And when you're not, that's honestly, it's very destructive. So it sounds like I'm saying two different things. No, I don't think people can be married 30, 40, and 50 years. But I like Margaret Mead's version, what she learned with some tribes, which was you're married to somebody for a space of time as long as it works. And when it doesn't work anymore, then you know what? Let's dissolve this and we go our separate ways and find somebody who's appropriate for the stage that I'm going into. My husband was very good to be married to when I was having children and a store and longevity in the business and the bank account. And then once we had achieved certain goals and the kids had gone off to school, we had different paths. I wanted to do this, and he was very traditional Capricorn. And even though he said to me, I'll support you in whatever you want, you can do anything you want. That wasn't what I wanted. I wanted a companion right next to me that believed in the stuff I believed in. And he didn't, but I was the one who had changed. So I'm not saying two different things. What I'm saying is that you should get realistic about the stuff that you're trying to force on other people or be judgmental about. 40, 50, 60 years? Who can stay loyal that long? If you can't find anybody, then guess what? It's not working. And you're just making everybody feel bad. I'm not talking about open marriages. That doesn't work for me. I'm a Cancer. That doesn't work. I don't. I'm telling you my version, and I understood when Margaret Mead talked about that, which is kind of like serial marriages, but I don't really think that people need to be married anyway. I think that if this partnership feels good enough, that there's no reason for there to be documents that tie you together. I want to go back to the Nuremberg trials. World, I know I'm giving you a ton of information. Why? Do I think I'm going to be dead tomorrow? I won't be able to give it to you? No, I'm going to have a whole section of information for you because we're in Revelation, so it's coming up, coming up, coming up. But I have to drink some water first. So give me a second. This is barley, roasted barley, toasted barley, and then you boil it for 20 minutes. Barley is one of, I think, the 5 sacred foods on the planet because its pH is perfect. It is incredibly soothing. So I also put in flaxseed, which is really good for all your digestive organs. Great for your colon. Okay. Nuremberg trials. What a setup. Aren't we proud of the Nuremberg trials? Well, one of the important people in Nuremberg trials was the head of mind control program of the United States. Great. And the decision was, we do not let the public know that Nazism used metaphysical information to almost turn the entire planet over to darkness, like Darth Vader. And then, of course, the ETs didn't want for the Nazis ultimately to win. They just jerk everybody around, the bad ones. They pulled the rug out from under them, and then the Nazis lost. And we won, and we took over, and the ETs trolleyed on over to the United States, and I think England and Russia, not really sure, not accusing anybody of anything. And we're holding hands with them. Apparently, a lot in Kansas. Certainly in the military bases. Now, it cannot be too hard to find out what military bases are part of the mind control program. You just take a person like me and other people that are mind controlled in association with military, and you look at the bases that we went, where we were put. Because they would never send people like me to a military base that wasn't mind controlled. So it's not really that hard to track this down. Back to the Nuremberg trials. So the public was not allowed to know about the swastika. So then the people in the city of Coral Gables thought it was a Nazi. And I think they're blooming idiots because they have a very narrow lens. This incarnation, the Nazis and the swastika, you widen it, and it's 6,000 years, including the Hopi Indians, that consider the swastika for good luck. So, back to the Nuremberg trials. My most severe training, actually, I don't even know what my most severe training was, but I had a training in 1960 with my control. And he worked with, and I didn't have the time to look up the guy's name, but he was from McGill University, where Kamala Harris got her degree in Canada. And he did experiments for the CIA. He had these shocking blue eyes. I don't remember his name. And he worked with me. That man was scary. I mean, you just looked at his eyes and it was like, so he did experiments that basically destroyed the mind of many Canadians that he was experimenting on. And the CIA has been in continuous lawsuits with the children of these people that he mind controlled. So you can look that up easily. And every couple of years, those lawsuits come up, which in my opinion are like bait. Let's see who's going to jump out and start asking questions. So it must be a situation that the CIA can kind of deep state kind of handle. Okay, so I'm in the Everglades, mind control. This guy with the deep blue eyes from McGill University mind control experiments. I don't know what it was that happened, but I remember overhearing them saying, we can never let anybody know because if we do, they're going to hold Nuremberg trials for the people that ran the Nuremberg trials. So at some point, I promise you that I will go back because I was sitting there when they said that. So someplace inside of me, I have that information. And I suspect it has to do with ETs, but I don't really know. And I'll share it with you. And there's another thing. My control in the 60s, 70s, 80s, Kennedy gave him a special award for special contributions to intelligence, and they never specified what it was. You might want to look that up. I'm not really talking to you, Trump, because I think you're kind of busy. And I think it's good, the stuff that you're doing. I think it's great. And I'm going to remind you that the resonance of Venezuela is the same resonance of the United States, regardless of all the disinformation that the US military put out starting years ago to trash the Venezuelan reputation so that it would be so easy just to invade, and all of a sudden the United States is in charge of the richest country in the world and all their resources. The Venezuelans are mainly angelic consciousness, just like Trump is. And when I started to see the stuff about that dumb Venezuelan on social media about how he was making all this money by having a child in the United States, there was something about it that didn't feel right. The fact that the guy is like, whatever, that wasn't it. There was a feeling, and it was a setup. And they continued, and you continue to put out information in order to feed people's mind and point them in a direction to where if we invade Venezuela, this is a good thing for the planet. You know what? It's not a good thing for the planet. It's a very bad thing for the planet. I don't think the Galactic Federation is going to like that at all. It was and continues to be a setup. It's not defending Venezuela. It's defending us and the planet. When you do something that big, okay, if this government, US government today, 2025, continues to follow the lead of what has been set up for a long time in order for the US military to control Venezuela, it's not going to be good for the United States. It will be very good for the US military. But it turns out that the US military is totally in charge of the mind control. Maybe we don't want that. So I'm glad to see that we're in the Caribbean and we're not invading. And Trump, you need to continue to hold that line, and you need to look at who is particularly interested in invasion, who is explaining why we have to invade. And now I want to talk to the dictator of Venezuela. Maduro, how many more healings am I going to give you? How many times am I going to say on my social media that we know you want to leave and that it's your group that is holding you there? Are they working with the US military to be able to get them to invade? Give me a break, Maduro. Figure it out. Bribe some people, get yourself out of there. We all want you out of there. You want out of there. Why aren't you out of there? I'm getting tired. I'm spending too much time on Venezuela because all of you guys are, your lens is very small. Widen your lens. Maduro, figure it out. Don't kill yourself. It's not good. I have a lot invested in this because gotta take it off here again. My thesis when I was at the University of Miami was going to be institutional violence as a form of government control. I wanted to understand that. Well, I understand it today. It was standard working procedure, standard operating procedure. I don't want that today. Oh, Francis, you're arrogant. Yes, I am arrogant. So, what's your next statement? What's your next statement? I'm arrogant. I have very low self esteem as a female, blah, blah, blah. I have very high self-esteem in terms of my mind, which this government managed through torture and everything else to develop to the level I have it. So I'm arrogant. I don't care that you think I'm arrogant. I care about a peaceful transition of power in Venezuela. It turns out the dictator wants to get out of there. The US military doesn't want it to be peaceful. Are we going to let them win this one? Because it's not going to be good for the United States. It's not going to work. Not going to work. Big picture, widen your lens. So I think that I've finished. So look at Mr. Pincus and tell him that because he cut my hair off, I am not comfortable even with this straggly hair here. Huge trauma. What the hell? My hair is important, but maybe it's important because of what they did. They denied me my ability to have a full head of hair. What can I tell you? Okay. Rene de Villegas owns a property. I think it's South Miami. He did so much black magic there, he opened the portal. My group went there many times, and we ended up calling it the Mantrista portal. Portals, you can have good, you can have bad, like the portal over Jerusalem. I want that property. I want Rene de Villegas, because he's going to be dead soon, because he's sick with, I think, HIV. I want that property. But I don't want that property for me, because I would never live there. And I don't want that property for my family. And we don't need the money. We don't need, I mean, it's not that we're rich, but we don't need it. That's a portal. The Mantrista portal in Miami would stabilize South Florida for hurricanes, for everything. And so I was thinking, so who's going to live there? Because you can't leave a property like that with nobody there. It's in a neighborhood. You can't do that. And then I thought, the tantric monks. Huh? So Trump, I want the tantric monks, not just the geisha thumping and not just the Rinpoche, who is magical. They need their little team to do their ceremonies, which is what they do all day long. And then we'll install them there. And we will have a stabilizing force in the south of the United States, which has to do with helpful friends, which would be really great. But I would have to own it. Why? Because I don't trust the US government. Why would I trust them? And Trump he shouldn't do another term. He should enjoy himself after this. This is like a little bit stressful what he's doing. So I would have to own it. So I am publicly, I've said it several times, Rene de Villegas, his family, figure it out. Don't tell me there's a mortgage on it. Pay off that mortgage and deed that over to me, not my family, not Miami, not Trump, me. I'm being greedy. I want that portal. I want it defended. I want it to take care of my city. I don't like all that information about Florida being underwater. We like Miami. My family likes boating a lot. Miami is a beautiful place. So Rene de Villegas' family, get it figured out and don't take forever. Before you hide like cockroaches under rocks, get that figured out. And I'll stop talking about you guys. Okay, that's it. I talked 43 minutes and I thought it was going to be 15, but I'm half Cuban. And it really shows when I start to talk. So I love you a lot. That's it. Bye.